I'm just going to get us going. I'll introduce myself quickly and then just ask my colleagues on the MACO steering committee to provide a very brief introduction of yourself, and then we can turn to just a little bit of a table setting for how we're going to operate the listening session, and we can get going. So I am Mike Snyder, and good morning. Welcome. Thank you all for attending. Great panels this morning. I learned a tremendous amount about the state of observations and things that, you know, I read about in the paper, like eDNA and gliders and those types of technologies, and it's great to see the people who are working on it and a lot of exciting things that are coming to our region, and great to have such great technical experts working here in the Mid-Atlantic. I'm the Ocean and Great Lakes Program Manager at the New York Department of State. I am also on the MACO Steering Committee, and I am honored to be a co-chair of the Offshore Wind Regional Collaboration, which is our MACO Offshore Wind working group. So definitely very active in the MACO space, as well as an active participant in MACO on the management board. So I am going to start calling on each of my steering committee colleagues one by one. So please take yourself off mute and just give us a brief introduction. I'll just go left to right on my screen. So Daryl Francois, if you could get us started.
Yes, my name is Daryl Francois. I am Chief of the Engineering and Technical Review Program for the Office of Renewable Energy Programs at the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Good to be here, and I'll turn it back to you, Mike.
Great, thanks, Daryl. Next up, I see Kevin Hassell.
Great, thanks, Mike. I'm Kevin Hassell. I'm with Jersey's Department of Environmental Protection. I am current chair of MACO, and I am on the management board for MACO. And Mike has left out that, you know, coming this year, he will step into the role as chair. So turn it back to you.
And I look forward to it. Thank you. Darlene Finch, next on my screen.
Hi there, good morning. My name is Darlene Finch. I am the Mid-Atlantic Regional Lead for NOAA's Office for Coastal Management, which means I work from New York down to Virginia. I'm also a member of the MACO Steering Committee, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from the stakeholders. I feel like we've had a tremendous amount of information over the past 2.5 days. Feels like it's been a lot longer, but I think the opportunity to hear from the stakeholders about what's on your mind is a really good opportunity for us. So thanks.
Great, thanks, Darlene. Next up, I see Jessica Coakley. Morning, Jessica.
Good morning, almost afternoon. Jessica Coakley, Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council. I've been with the council for 15 years, working on fisheries issues and a number of fish and vertebrate species. Really happy to be here and hear what folks have to say. Also going to plug that we've got a session tomorrow that's going to talk a little bit about fisheries and climate and birds and marine mammal impacts. So figured while we got this on, just to remind folks not to forget to connect on day 4. We have more to come.
Thank you for that reminder, Jessica, and absolutely. I see Laura Mckay has rejoined. Laura, I'm not sure if your webcam is working. I don't see it, but I know you're here. So if you would like to just give a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. Hi, Mike. I apologize. I'm not sure why my webcam's not working. It says I'm sharing it and it's green, but anyway, I am here. My name's Laura Mckay. I manage Virginia's Coastal Zone Management Program, and I'm a founding member of MACO along with Mike. I think we're the last 2 Mike founding members left. Also glad to be on the steering committee, actually finishing up my term on the MACO steering committee. And it's been a terrific forum so far. I've learned a ton already, kind of drinking from a fire hose this week, as they say, but looking forward to hearing from the public and what we can do moving forward. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Laura. And those are all the steering committee members that I'm aware of. If I missed anybody who is not on webcam, if you could just announce yourself, I'll give just a brief moment for anybody that I may have inadvertently missed. Okay, I would just ask my colleagues to leave your webcams on, please, and mute your microphone unless you'd like to make a clarifying statement or a comment. And let's begin. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of how we'll operate this listening session, and then we'll turn it over to all of you to hear your insights and thoughts. At this time, we're going to invite interested members of the public to offer public comments, and we're inviting you to focus those comments on any topic you wish related to regional ocean planning. And that can include, but doesn't need to be limited to, priority issues, the need for enhanced federal, tribal, and state collaboration, or any of our MACO workgroup activities. Our objective here this morning is really to listen to you, to gather information, to gather input, so that it can inform and guide our efforts moving forward. This is a listening session. The steering committee is going to take under consideration all of the comments that we hear today, whether verbal or written, and we will refer those comments to the appropriate working group where that is warranted. To make comments, you have the following options. Avalon mentioned, but I will reiterate that you can put your comments into the question and chat section, or if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function, and we will make sure that we announce you. Please keep your microphone muted until you are recognized. We will be monitoring the questions, the chat, and the raised hands functions. Please be patient with us. We'll try to get to as many comments as we're able to during the time provided. And again, if you are recognized to speak, we will enable you to unmute yourself, so please make your comment, first stating your name and your organization. Any member of the steering committee is certainly able to follow up to ask a clarifying question or provide some brief clarifying remarks. But again, the primary purpose here is to provide a platform for all of you to provide your input. So we do not anticipate getting into discussion on particular topics as we do during the panels. We will be recording this session, so if we cannot get to you personally for an oral comment, please do post a written comment so we can capture it for further consideration. And in making your comments, we ask that you be considerate of others, be brief to the point, and try to limit your comments to a maximum of 2 to 3 minutes. If you go over this time, I will ask you to please wrap up so we can get to the next person so everyone has an opportunity to speak who wants to. As always, please be respectful and considerate in your comments and your choice of language. And remember that even after today, you can always submit comments or contact MACO at any time via our email, which is info@midatlanticocean.org. So with that, we can dive right in. And I'm going to start monitoring the chat function, the question function, and the raised hands. So please do start letting us know what's on your mind.
I don't think anyone wants to go first. That's the problem. Once someone gets over that initial thing, I'm sure we'll start getting some more. So
Definitely. I think we would certainly be open to input anybody has, particularly on this morning's panel, but any of the panels from prior days as well. We had a great discussion yesterday on offshore wind. I know there's a lot of interest in that particular topic, but certainly things along the lines of ocean observations and the like. Okay, looks like we have someone who would like to make a statement. Arlo Hemphill, I am recognizing you. If you could just briefly introduce yourself, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Arlo Hemphill. I'm a senior oceans campaigner with Greenpeace USA. I recognize a lot of people in this room, and it's really nice to see your faces. First, I just want to congratulate on the great work that you've done. It seems that, especially in the area of renewable energy and climate change in the ocean, you guys are really leaders and out in the front. One area that I would really love to see more of and more commitment to in this ocean is, in this region, is the question of ocean sanctuaries / marine protected areas. The Mid-Atlantic region seems underrepresented in terms of US coverage for protected areas. And recently the Biden administration has come forward with a commitment to 30 by 30, which is to protect 30% of the US oceans and land by 2030. A further report is going to come out about that either today or tomorrow from the Department of the Interior, further laying out their plan and their commitment to pursue 30 by 30. And I feel that considering that particular environment, political environment, this is a great opportunity for the states to move forward and make similar commitments to 30 by 30. And considering the very low coverage compared to the Pacific that the Atlantic has, it would just be, amazing opportunity to, in your regional planning efforts, to include include spatial protections in that range of planning that you're going through. So I just hope that you consider that, and thank you very much for letting me speak. And again, really great to see you guys.
Great, thank you, Arlo. And for those who don't know, Arlo was with us in MACO for a number of years, so great to hear from you. Let's see, looking for our chat functions here to see if we have other questions coming in.
Michael Jones has a question.
Okay, looks like we have another question. All right, question coming in, and again, to the degree that the steering committee members feel comfortable offering some clarifications, this looks like one I might turn to you. With the change in administration, do any of you foresee the resurgence of the RPB format with greater federal involvement? And for those who aren't familiar, this is referencing a prior iteration of the federal-state interchange at the regional level that was superseded by MACO. And that question comes to us from Michael Jones. So thank you, Michael. Is there any clarification that anybody on the federal side would be able to offer at this point? If not, that's fine. We can keep moving. Okay. Well, thank you for that question, Mike. And certainly that's something I would say from the state perspective is on our mind as well. We all want to make sure that we are continuing to move forward in ways that are, consistent with the federal priorities. And certainly we see MACO as a very helpful construct for that regional federal-state engagement. But as always, we are eager to work with our federal partners in whatever context we're able. So thank you for that comment. Another comment comes to us from Sarah Lane. This comment is a potential opportunity for collaboration. UMCES has secured a $1 million National Science Foundation grant to study Chesapeake Bay nutrient plume impacts and those impacts to the Atlantic food web. So opportunity here for folks on the steering committee to participate in that study. So thank you for that, Sarah, and certainly something I would invite our steering committee members to follow up on if you're able to. And again, those who would like to offer an oral comment, we're happy to do that. Just make sure you raise your hand in the function in your control panel.
Hi, Mike. This is Jessica Coakley. I can't quite seem to figure out how to raise my hand, but I just wanted to make a comment, just a follow up to Arlo, who raised the issue of 30 by 30 and the MPA program. So tomorrow morning, we'll be receiving a presentation during the morning session from Mimi Diorio that's going to talk a little bit about the information that's available to help that conversation about 30 by 30 and describe what 30 by 30 is for those who might not be familiar with it. So I just wanted to let our participants know if they're not familiar with what 30 by 30 is. or the kind of information we might have available, they could tune in tomorrow morning for that.
Great, that's great information, and thank you, Jessica. I see a comment here from Colleen Brust that is a question, but I think I would just offer it as something that that we would all be keeping in mind moving forward in the steering committee. Could someone talk about identifying significant changes in the marine environment and establishing causation, for example, distinguishing climate cause change from offshore wind? And I think what this comment is getting at is looking at, as we look at the changes in the ocean, looking for where that causation is and teasing out different things that may be confounding some of the study that we're doing. So great comment, something that I think all of the steering committee members are probably eager to make sure that we're taking into consideration in our various work streams. So thank you for that, Colleen.
Mike, it's Darlene. Roselle has joined us on the panel. You might want to introduce her also as a member of the steering committee.
Thank you, Darlene. Roselle, I see you now on our panel list. Roselle, a member of the steering committee. Roselle, if you're able to unmute yourself and briefly introduce who you are, that would be great. And we invite everyone to share their webcams. So if you're able to do that as well, that would also be great. And if you're talking, Roselle, I don't hear you, but just make sure your microphone is unmuted. Okay, well, Roselle, while we're waiting for her, I do see another comment has come in about whether MACO is doing any work on understanding the blue economy in the mid-Atlantic. And I know we have some activity on that front in the MACO context. I would just first see if any of my colleagues on the steering committee want to offer any information or clarification you might have on blue economy work from your perspectives and your entities.
Well, so this is Darlene, and I have a question. Could we get an expansion on the blue economy work? I mean, the blue economy work covers a whole lot of territory. So are there specific aspects? I'm not quite sure what MACO is doing on that, but I'm wondering what the specific aspects are that people are interested in hearing about. Focus in beyond just the big statement blue economy.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And while we're waiting for Maggie to maybe add some further clarification on that, oh, here we go. Fisheries and offshore wind. So specific to those two topic areas, if anybody would like to comment on that. Or again, this is clarifying comments, so any resources or information that you are able to share at this point. Otherwise, certainly this is a topic area that, as I mentioned earlier, from the MACO standpoint, we are very actively engaged in looking at as a lens through which we do our work. So as Darlene mentioned, blue economy is an expansive topic. And we want to make sure that as we are moving forward through our shared regional priorities, we do so with an eye towards both the impacts and the potential benefits to the blue economy at large. So certainly an area of great interest to all of us. Any steering committee members, excuse me, like to add anything to that?
I think that's good. I think that, we end up, as Darlene said, we kind of need to elaborate on a definition. I think that's something that needs to be kind of used out for the Mid-Atlantic, right? So, because I know in each of the states we might be doing different initiatives that might not be called under that, say, the blue economy tag, but they have a very close tie to it. So like in New Jersey, we're doing a lot with offshore wind and how we want to try and develop an economy around that. So there's definitely, a lot of manufacturing and supply chain work and O&M and also training. So.
I see Jessica had her hand raised, but if she had something to say, I would just add that if we're going to talk about the blue economy, I think it's important, I would believe, to not just consider it as a Mid-Atlantic issue, but something that maybe from a regional ocean planning or partnership aspect that would be an ideal second area, just as we did earlier this year on the transmission issue, to have maybe a collective examination or work plan that is in collaboration with the Northeast Regional Ocean Council, as well as to whatever other entities to the south of Virginia that we can bring on board to look at that, because the economy is definitely not just does not respect our jurisdictional boundaries that we've for the ROP.
Mike, this is Jessica Coakley. I just wanted to follow up on the fisheries issue and sort of the intersection of fisheries and wind in terms of development. I know there's a number of projects and initiatives that are looking at improving the data, about fisheries and fish distribution information that will go into the NROC and MACO data portals that will be occurring over the next few years. So I think that's going to help people in terms of understanding where these resources sort of intersect with all of those kinds of development activities. Tomorrow morning, we'll have Chris McGuire from the Nature Conservancy is going to talk a little bit about a wind sighting tool that they've been working to develop. So there'll be a talk on that in the morning. So I think figuring out how our fisheries intersect with these other ocean uses is a really important part of developing the blue economy. So there's a lot of work, I think, swirling around that, better understanding how our fishermen are using those ocean spaces and how they might respond to structures put out in the water in terms of how that might change their fishing behavior, as well as an important thing to look at that I know a number of researchers are exploring right now. So I think over the next few years, there's going to be a lot of really interesting products that are going to be available to MACO and MARCO and our partners as we move forward with offshore development.
Great, thank you, Jessica. And again, thanks for that nice trailer teaser for tomorrow morning. I think you have a second calling in advertising if you ever want to take it up. And I wanted to maybe echo and refer back to a couple of the comments that have come in both today and in yesterday's sessions regarding kind of the interrelationships of not only some of these topic areas, but the geographies. I know we had questions yesterday in the wind session on North Carolina, and certainly, you know, as we're talking about some of the fisheries impacts and offshore wind generally, there's a big geography out there. And as we think about these things from a regional context, I know from our perspective in New York, but more broadly in MARCO and MACO, we are very mindful of the connectivity between different regions, and that the ocean does have, you know, no boundaries in a sense, whether it's from state to federal waters or from one region to the next. Or from estuaries to the oceans in some respects. So that connectivity is really important for us to acknowledge, and certainly as we move forward and continue to work through on our different topic areas and think through about our coordination efforts, that's an area that I think we continue to look to continue to strengthen. How can we work more closely with some of the other regions? So a lot of good work to come on that, I think, and some good things that we have in the works. So stay tuned on that front. Okay, we have a comment in from Amanda Rutherford. Unfortunately, Amanda's not able to use her microphone, but she does want to let us know the Maritime Administration has a grant program that's focused on getting freight off of the roads, moving it by water. And Amanda says this is a perfect fit to move wind energy assets. The program is called the Marine Highway Program, and it's offered every year. and Amanda has put her contact information in here as well. She is the Mid-Atlantic Gateway Director. So I think that's something everyone can try to have included as a follow-up to the meeting. So if folks want to contact Amanda, they can. Thank you, Amanda, for that comment. I just want to do a quick microphone check for Laura. I know you've been having a little trouble, Laura Mckay. Are you able to hear us, and is your microphone still working?
Yes, I can hear you now, Mike. I really don't understand why the webcam's not working, but I'm here. So sorry, did I miss something that I need to answer?
I think we're okay, and certainly, you know, if you have thoughts on anything that's in the question session here that's written, by all means, Laura, feel free to add some clarification on that.
Thanks. I'm not seeing questions in the chat either. I think I'm still in as an attendee, not a presenter or something.
We'll try to get you switched.
No worries.
Okay, it looks like we have a hand raised from Jeremy Firestone. Jeremy, if you could unmute yourself and just briefly introduce yourself and share your comment with us, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Jeremy Firestone. I'm a professor at the University of Delaware in the School of Marine Science and Policy, and the director of the University Center for Research in Wind. So my comment goes to the fact that the states in the Mid-Atlantic and really in the Northeast as well are taking a very state-centric approach to development of offshore wind when these are really regional issues, and it seems that you have a much bigger and important role to play. It is not efficient for us as a region to have this state-centric approach. We're not going to be able to do as effective a job of climate mitigation. We're not going to be able to do an effective job as dealing with human health. We're not going to be able to do as effective job at dealing with energy justice and just transition issues that affect fishers, commercial fishers who are affected by projects without regard to the state that they're off, because they still may fish in waters that are affected. We've got some marginalized communities along the coast, and we need to be thinking about them as well. Impacts on users. So off of Delaware, we have a Delaware wind energy area. Part of it is going to be developed to provide electricity to Marylanders. Now, there's obviously some price suppression benefits to Delaware, but all of the economic development and all of the focus of the regulators in Maryland are on Marylanders and not on Delawareans who are going to have offshore wind across its coast. So I think there's a really important role, and states are developing inefficiently ports. What we really need are 2 or 3 very large marshaling ports for deployment, not a bunch of small individual ports that can serve a single project. We really need to think about this as an energy transition issue, a regional energy transition issue, and not a boutique state issue to serve state politicians. And I would hope that you all engage together and with us more interactively on these topics in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Jeremy. Would anyone on the steering committee like to offer any clarifications or any information related to that comment?
It's Darlene, and I have a question for Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. Nice to see you again. So Jeremy, do you think there are mechanisms out there that could help us do this more effectively at a regional scale? I mean, I understand the concerns. I'm just trying to think about what already exists that we could tap into, other than this group, which is a collaborative group. What kind of mechanism would help us more effectively look from a regional approach?
Well, I think we need to bring in the folks who are doing economic development. We need to bring in folks from the governor's offices who are mandating these, and I think a lot of it can be from your own bully pulpit too, of putting out information and guidance and doing some studies on regional collaboration and the benefits of regional collaboration. It's just not something that's discussed. I mean, states occasionally, the governors sign these, MOUs of cooperation, and they get a press release, and then nothing happens on them. And then we turn and focus inward, just like climate change is a global issue and we all need to work on this together, or the coronavirus is a global issue, and we need to collaborate with others in order to decrease risks to all. States need to do this too. I mean, it was one thing when the price for offshore wind was quite high and you were paying a large price premium, that more economic benefits should flow. But we really need to be thinking about this as a region and as a nation, as a society, about how do we go about doing this in the best possible way. And that means, we, if it's as big a transition as the states want and the Biden administration wants, and we're not just talking about 30 gigawatts, we're talking 60 or 80 or 100 gigawatts by 2050. Then there's a lot for everyone, but we have these large issues, and we're going to have a better chance of moving forward on them, I think, if we cooperate. So I don't necessarily have the answer, but I think this body could help provide it.
Hey, thank you for that clarification. Any further follow-up from the steering committee members?
Not much, other than we recognize that's a huge challenge, right? And I think there are efforts that are trying to do that, and I think there's a lot more collaboration and coordination across those entities. So there's a lot more folks that need to bring into those discussions than even here, and with the grid operators themselves, because it changes across the region as well. So there's a lot to coordinate, and I think there are improvements, but we definitely recognize that it's critical to do a better job of that.
Thank you.
Indeed. Certainly a topic on the minds of many of us. And for those of us who were able to participate, we just had a New York Bight Task Force meeting. So, I think it's just a sign of the sort of growing evolution of the conversation to become more regional in nature. What started off as these individual state task force meetings have really grown. And I think rightly so, getting back to that earlier point about the geography not recognizing the boundaries that we try to impose upon it, and the ocean being a connected place. So thank you for that comment, Jeremy. Okay, while we're waiting for more comments to come in, anybody else on the steering committee who has not had a chance to announce themselves, who would like to be brave and jump on webcam, please do so. And I would just remind everybody who has commented already that we, in addition to recording today's listening session, we are taking notes, and we are making an effort to make sure we capture all of the important comments and thoughts that are being offered. So thank you.
Mike, while we're waiting for folks to type in the chat box, I guess I had a general question for folks that might be on the call. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of interest in wind and a lot of issues related to it. And MACO is involved in a number of different work groups and endeavors, including the Marine Debris Work Group and several other groups. I guess from the folks joining, are there areas of work where folks think MACO could be beneficial, but we aren't working on right now? So, you know, we're working on wind, we're working on marine debris, we're working on some of these other things, but are there things where folks that are connected think we've completely missed the mark or overlooked an area that would be important for MACO to focus on? So just putting it out there if anyone wants to type into the chat box and has something to add.
And on that note, Jessica, something that came up in our wind conversation yesterday, topic areas and also groups, you know, getting back to that, you know, increasing our connections. Are there other stakeholders or groups who you haven't seen engaged here in the forum these last few days that you think we should be reaching out to? Because we do want to make sure that we have an inclusive conversation. Thank you for that comment, Jessica, on that prompt.
I don't know how to raise my hand. Can you hear me and see me?
We can, okay. Yes.
I just wanted to respond to Jessica's comment and say that I think one maybe stakeholder group, I don't know if it's an answer to focus, but it might be just to incorporate more, and that is the younger members of our communities, the ones that are going to be entering or have just entered the workforce, and thinking about what opportunities MACO might provide to start to be part of their training so that they can become effective contributors going forward and just understand what is being discussed and what's going on at a regional level. So I'll speak selfishly about, we have a whole school full of students and they love to get engaged in real world issues that they can be the saviors and come and save the world. There's a lot of save the world mentality with our students. And so if MACO could provide a forum for those students to be engaged or have a voice or just be flies on the wall to see how regional coordination is done. And so that's why I don't know, Jessica, if it's a focus, but I think it would be great for MACO to think more about how some of the student and or early career members of the community in the Mid-Atlantic could be engaged.
Great comment, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's critical that we continue to examine how we outreach and engage with folks in different groups and understand how we can increase that's always helpful. So.
And a shout out to you, Kevin, because you did it last week for us. Kevin was a speaker in one of our classes, and that makes a real impression on the students. So, you know,
it it was great to see the students, all the work they're doing. So it was better for me than probably for them. So. And also, you know, like Josh, yeah, maybe that's also just getting them engaged and aware of. I know this week is probably hard for a lot of students because finals coming up and things like that. So, but how can we make sure we're spreading out awareness for when we do have a forum? Because everyone's welcome to come to the forum and join into these discussions and hear what's happening. So we want to make sure that, you know, if people can figure out good ways for us to make sure we're reaching the proper people to engage with, that's always helpful too. So.
Since I'm our official advertiser here, I'll just put in a plug that following this session, we have a poster session that'll be going on with high school through early career professionals that are going to be connecting and presenting on some really interesting posters. So it's the first time we've done it. So I think it's a first attempt here for us to sort of engage those groups. And it, you know, required some unique outreach, I think, to get and solicit those that engagement that we don't typically do. So maybe that's something that we can continue to build on.
Great, thank you, Jessica.
No, I would just comment, thanks, Jessica, for that advertisement. That was that's good for your advanced thinking. But you know, at the MACO forum that we when all these weren't online, the first one was at Monmouth University, where students were invited and to attend throughout the several day, both day session there. I would think that we would want to encourage that when we are either in a virtual or back in a face-to-face environment. I know on the federal agency level, and Darlene, I'm sure this is true at NOAA as well, that there is a significant outreach to high schools, K through 12, as well as to college students to educate them about field opportunities in the science fields. And for the last several years, our staff have participated not with other entities up and down the coast in the American Clean Power or American Wind Energy Associations, both collegiate and high school, as judges for the collegiate and high school programs associated with those conferences. So it is something that we think about quite a bit, but definitely for MACO and MARCO going forward would be something to sort of incorporate as a constant feature in our activities.
Great. Thank you, Daryl. Oh, hi, Laura.
Hello. Avalon sent me a wonderful little video of someone bashing their computer with a bat. I'm so sorry, everyone.
That's okay. We're glad you're able to join. I did want to pause for a second and just recognize, I know we had a couple of our steering committee members who have popped in and out as well, Laura. Roselle Stern, Dr. Kelsey Leonard, I saw her on a little bit earlier as well. So I do appreciate that it's during the lunch hour and we're all juggling many things. And for those who have been able to join for at least part of the conversation today, we really appreciate it. Again, for everybody submitting comments, we are recording and writing and certainly taking everything that you say, and we'll be considering it and passing it on to the work groups as appropriate. We have another comment in from Mary Camhunt from the Wildlife Conservation Society, the New York Aquarium. And Mary says, helpful overview of the multiple simultaneous efforts by diverse federal, state, local agencies, academic institutions, private companies, and a multitude of stakeholders to use, monitor, and protect the waters and resources of the Mid-Atlantic coast. It's an impressive and maybe unprecedented amount of attention and data being generated. The intention of MSP is to facilitate the communication coordination we've witnessed this week, but it's clear there's still a lot of work being done in silos, which quite frankly makes it quite difficult to track and wrap our heads around who's doing what, where the gaps lie. I recommend one valuable resource that could come out of these workshops would be a document that very briefly summarizes what each of the agencies and entities that presented this week, as well as other relevant groups that did not, are working on, including tools they're using or developing, meetings, collaborative structure, main questions they're addressing when it comes to managing and sharing waters, where data are stored, who has it, how to access it, short, long-term goals, links to relevant reports, and primary points of contact, among other things. If all agencies and entities submitted this in similar format, including MACO, and Mary indicates they'd be willing to help with this, MACO could compile this info into summative tables and figures to help draw a clearer picture of who is doing and responsible for what and where, and how stakeholders may be better able to engage. Thank you, Mary. Great comments. You know, formatting is key, right? So certainly as we start to compile information, we want to make sure that it's usable for folks. And I thought that was a great point that came up in the last panel on observations. Usability of the information is key. Usability not just for those of us on MACO, but usability for all of you as well. So I think as we look to compile that kind of information, I know we're doing it in some of the work groups in terms of the meetings that are happening, you know, how do we collate things in a way that's digestible and that you all know what's happening and know how to plug in. So that transparency element is really key. I think there's a lot there for us to build from, but we know that there's farther for us to go too. So thank you for that comment. Anyone else on the steering committee like to offer a clarification or additional reaction to that? Please do so.
So this is not a clarification, but it's kind of building off that, which is, I mean, one of the great things about the forum is it's a real opportunity for us to dive in on specific topics, to look across the landscape and figure out who are all the players that can bring some insights and perspectives to the table. So I guess my question is, are there, you know, I think we've tried to be responsive in this forum and teeing up some things that we've heard in previous forums or from our stakeholders before about what they wanted to hear about. Are there other topics? I'm not trying to cover the entire landscape. I think Mary wants a better directory, but are there some other topics that you'd like us to try to put together the experts or try to dive into a little deeper and bring that back to the Mid-Atlantic? I kind of deflected to a question, Mike, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Darlene. Any other reactions to Mary's comment or further clarification? Okay, I see we have another comment in from Megan Trummel. It'd be good to see MACO work together to address impacts of climate change on the ocean. The work on ocean acidification through the OA working group is a good start. It'd be great to expand the work to understand and address the full range of climate impacts in the Mid-Atlantic. Thank you, Megan. Certainly, I think we see the ocean acidification work as being kind of a natural outgrowth of where we started on some of these conversations. And I know from my own personal perspective, as we learn more in the scope of CO2 and impacts on the environment beyond the climate change issue and into things like ocean acidification and start to see how these things are connected, it just seems like there's even more work to do. So I really appreciate that. And I think, again, from a regional perspective, there's a lot of information that's being produced by our individual entities, a lot of interest that we can help bring together and help make accessible to folks. Any other thoughts on Megan's comment?
I'll just say thanks for that, Megan. And, you know, I'd like to say I feel like we've come a long way since we started our Mid-Atlantic Ocean Plan in 2016, and we had that action in there to develop a monitoring network. And MACAN is that network of people, but we still have a lot of work to do to create the network of actual physical monitors in the ocean. But I'm also encouraged by the fact that a lot of states have joined I think it's called the International Ocean Alliance, And as you do that, you're required to come up with state OA plans. And I know in Virginia, we're starting to work on that. And I think as we stitch together those state OA plans, that will hopefully go a long way toward making more progress as well on ocean acidification, understanding what the impacts are and what we can do. So hopefully lots more work to come.
Great, thank you, Laura. Anyone else? Okay, I see another comment just came in from Judith Weiss. Regarding climate change, our salt marshes in the mid-Atlantic are having a hard time keeping up with the rate of sea level rise. I don't know how much interest you have in estuarine and coastal issues, but given all the ecosystem services provided by salt marshes, this is a very worrisome situation. We did a study for NJDEP about this, and the situation is bad. Thank you for that comment, Judith. And I think back to that earlier point that keeps coming up, that connectivity issue, and what happens in the ocean and what happens in the estuarine and coastal environment is connected. So thank you for that. Any other comments or clarifications on that from the steering committee members? Okay.
Well, I'll just say again, since I missed the first part of this whole session, didn't say anything, I'll fill in some more. But I think, Judith, a lot is happening at the state level on that, because it does become pretty much of a state issue. And I know in Virginia, we are working really hard to identify where wetlands can migrate inland and where there are barriers. And all of our land acquisition programs are very focused on acquiring lands behind wetlands that will allow them to migrate inland. It's a little bit of a tough issue to deal with on a regional scale, but rest assured, it's a huge topic at the state level.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm sure Kevin knows a bit about that New Jersey DEP study, but I won't put him on the spot, I promise. Okay, any other reactions to that? Okay. Yes, and Judith had a follow-up comment that in northern New Jersey, there's very little room to migrate inland. Certainly an issue many of us experience in our coastal work. That issue in the mid-Atlantic of space is at a premium. So thank you for that follow-up comment, Judith. We have a few minutes left, and I think we've been able to catch the various comments in the chat, questions, and the raised hands. Please, if you did have more on your mind that you didn't get a chance to share, please do continue to keep comments coming in. And as I mentioned at the top, you can please use the email address as well. We are always open to hearing from you. We want to hear from you. It helps us make our work better. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to each of our steering committee members, put you on the spot for a minute for a closing thought. And there's a particular topic that's been touched on and some attention yesterday in one of our panels to DEIJ. And just in your closing remarks, I'm going to put you all on the spot, as I promised. I'm going to ask you just to give a little bit of thought from your own perspectives about what maybe you've heard over the past couple of days here in the panel today, and just maybe reflect a little bit on the work we're doing broadly, but then also any thoughts you might have related to how MACO can really take DEIJ as an issue that we can carry forward in our work, either at the work group level or however. So kind of open comment, open reflection, and take it away. I'll let you identify yourselves rather than singling anybody out to start. But if it goes too long, I will start calling on people like your grade school teacher did.
Are you taking up Darlene's job? She always does that to me. So, I just really briefly, I think over the past few days, we, as Laura alluded to, it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's so much information. There's so much things happening. And it is critical that we get a handle on how we integrate that information that's coming in, how we integrate looking at those things at a broader perspective to ensure that we are concerned at a broader scale, not just individual sites that might be giving us a little bit of information, but overall, what is the health of the ocean? How do we better understand what changes are happening there? So I think there's just, we have to continue to do what we're doing. These collaborations are great. And to allude to the earlier comment about is there an RPB thing? I think we have a really great structure here. I'll plug that I would love to see more resources for both the states and our federal agencies to make sure that we have the ability to tackle these things. So contact your senators. I think we acknowledge that there's a huge amount of work there. So I think we need to get into that. And in terms of, we had a great conversation in ocean justice and stuff like that. And I think there are just new, and we alluded to a little bit today with, engaging with more youth audience and education spheres. There's a shift here that we need to acknowledge. And some of those old ways of engaging, we need to start putting effort into being better about that engagement. So, making sure that when we do think about how we fund any efforts we do, we have space there to properly engage with people that might not be able to under our typical ways of doing it. So.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Jessica, were you raising your hand?
I was. So, we've heard from a lot of research, from a lot of groups and a lot of different agencies, but I really think a lot of the collaboration really starts at the individual level. It starts with someone seeing something really interesting, an opportunity to work together, and building from those opportunities. So I hope as part of this forum, folks move forward and take advantage of some of those opportunities, what they've seen, reach out to some of the individuals, the presenters, the MACO members, make sure we hear about where they think really the potential is to make some progress on some of these topics. I also think it was great to hear from Josh and from Daryl about engaging at more of the high school and early professional level. And I think a lot of those changes in terms of engagement from groups that haven't previously been very engaged also starts at the individual level, getting those folks engaged and excited about the ocean and ocean issues. So the extent to which, as Daryl pointed out, we can fold some of these opportunities into our process and make them a permanent part of the process, I think that would be really great to see. So I'll leave it there because we've got a bunch of steering committee members to roll through.
Great, thanks, Jessica. Darlene, I had you next.
Oh, you were going to call on me, Mike, huh?
Well, you raised your hand. I don't know if you were pointing to Jessica. Or
I was pointing at Jessica, but I'm willing to go, okay? I think there are, I'm going to focus a little bit on the DEIJ side of the house. And I think there are two aspects to that. I think one of them has really been exacerbated by the pandemic. I think it's hard for us as government entities, those of us who are with government entities, to do really, really broad stakeholder engagement. And when we put it into a virtual environment, I think that made it even more challenging because by definition, a lot of people don't have access to the technology. And so that's been a real challenge. So I think that's as we emerge from this kind of amazing little over a year we've been through, I think we need to start looking at opportunities to really expand our ability and our thinking about who we pull in. Because I think the youth are really important, but I think that there are large swaths of communities that we haven't really connected well with. So that's one thing. But I also think there's another perspective we need to adopt, and it's really kind of unique to the oceans and to public places, which is, the way we've thought. We have to think about it as to who's using that area, which is where our concentration has been, our focus has been, but also who benefits from that. And that isn't necessarily tied to a piece of land, like a lot of the conversations we have around DEIJ are. So I think as we put that into an ocean context and try to get a better handle on who's using it and who's benefiting from it and who's bearing the cost of that, I think that's a whole new dimension we're going to have to think about. So it's a challenge for the next year for us to expand our thinking. But I'm really pleased to see the Biden administration is really pushing all of the federal agencies to invest in this, to understand it, to take this on as a high priority. So that's a really wonderful thing. Thanks, Mike.
Great, thank you, Darlene. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Laura?
Yeah, I think yesterday afternoon's DEIJ session I found really helpful. It was just really nice too. It was very much a conversation in the breakout groups, and it was really helpful to listen, especially to Simone and Whitney, about how to engage. You know, how do we, you know, I sit here in my little house in Richmond. How do I reach out to these communities that I don't necessarily know? How do you break the ice? How do you get out there? And so it was helpful to listen to them and some of their suggestions about, you know, just go into the neighborhood, walk around, talk to people. And we don't really get opportunities to do that. And we often don't really make the time for those kinds of one-on-one conversations. As Jessica was saying, things do start, you know, on an individual basis, and then trying to understand that we need to make it not about any one of us personally, but we need to build it up within our institutions, that those relationships are maintained over time, because it is so interesting, you know, to hear other voices and learn different perspectives. And I'm so grateful to Chief Adkins of the Chickahominy for teaching me more about the Native American perspective on our waters and oceans, and developing the reciprocity with nature that our Western culture seems to have lost. We focus on using it so much, and you know, the Native American way is to always, whatever you take, you give back. So anyway, it's been a great week, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it, and all the presenters we've had. So I will leave it at that.
Great, thanks, Laura. Daryl, any last thoughts?
Just that sort of to say, you know, with the installation of the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Pilot Project in federal waters, and then looking at the emphasis of the administration, current administration moving forward, the different initiatives they have on climate change, and offshore wind playing a significant role, offshore wind energy playing a significant role in that. There's going to be along the Mid-Atlantic coast and along the East Coast in general, a lot of investment in coastal communities as part of the development to come. I think the president was at Tidewater Community College yesterday to speak about the value of community college as a entry level into higher education. One of the things that one of my colleagues mentioned when they saw that was that Tidewater has one of the first and along the Atlantic coast training programs for offshore wind energy technicians, folks to climb and repair and be involved in the offshore wind energy industry. I believe that one of the major investments in Maryland is the Sparrows Point, former Bethlehem Steel site that has fallen into disrepair, and that is to be sort of a major investment to upgrade, environmentally resolve some of the environmental issues there from the former steel plant, and revitalize that area into a major trade port for Maryland and supporting the offshore wind energy industry. I know that University of Maryland Eastern Shore was involved in some educational programs for the offshore wind energy industry. So there is a lot to sort of on the grounds beginnings. There's a huge amount of investment, I think, in coastal communities coming. I know that the Secretary of Interior has a very focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and just environmental justice issues, and that will be a prime focus of her administration moving forward. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity there to come, at least over the next several years, and it's, I think, a good and a critical thing for the regional ocean partnerships to be able to help direct some of the focus and some of the effort towards ensuring that as this investment does come to bear, that everyone along the coast is included. And I'll just leave it there.
Great, thank you, Daryl. I just wanted to offer if there's any other steering committee members not on webcam that I haven't recognized, if you have any last thoughts. Give it a quick moment, and then I know we have to wrap to get ready for the poster session. Okay. Well, if you couldn't tell, my strategy was to try to get us close to 12:45 to reduce the any audience attrition and make sure that everybody was ready to jump right on to the poster session. So please do stick around. In about 5 minutes, we'll be starting that poster session. And my only closing thought would just be thank you all for the great comments and insight. And, you know, in terms of the reflections you all just offered, I think it really encourages me that the future and our efforts are going to only improve. I was just personally involved in our review of Sea Grant Nous Fellow applications for New York State. And if there's one thing I really took away from that, it's just that the next generation of ocean managers and scientists and folks interested in the ocean space is much more aware than I ever was at that age, and more active. And I think the days of us siloing ourselves and not recognizing our own individual responsibilities to be more inclusive and to take steps, I think those days are behind us, and I think that's a good thing for all. So thank you, everybody, and really appreciate the comments today. And again, in a few minutes, we will have the poster session. So please do hang in there.
Thanks, Mike.